All right, welcome everyone. This is the March 2026 Backstage community session. And if we haven't met, my name is Vincenzo. I'm one of the engineers working on Backstage. And this is the place where we share what's happening around Backstage. Usual recommendation, if you have a topic you'd like to bring up in the future, feel free to drop a comment under the GitHub issue for the next community session that you will find later today in the Backstage community repository. The link is, if I find the chat, is in the chat. Okay, today's agenda. So we have, first of all, release highlights for Backstage 1.49 that was released yesterday. After that, we'll have our friends, Damien and Kieran from Ericsson, sharing an update of all the great things they're doing. And last minute topic in the agenda, Miklós will show us Scaffolder Studio, another open source tool he has built. And at the end, we will wrap up with a Q&A. So if you have any question at any point, just drop them in the chat or use Zoom Q&A tool. Okay, let's kick things off. Okay, Backstage 139 was released yesterday, and since I like statistics, for this release, we counted 1,361 commits. That comes from 300 pull requests from 52 contributors. So thanks a lot to all humans and agents behind this release. And given the number of contributions we have received today in this release, there was basically too much. We couldn't fill in everything in one slide. So we have split the release highlights into 6, I think, slides. And I will need a little help from, I guess, Patrick or Freben to go through all of these. Who's turn next? Okay.
I think I can start at least.
Nice.
Indeed, we couldn't even fit in all the changes even across 6 slides. Lot in this release. Probably the biggest thing. This is the release that marks the release candidate for 1.0 of the new frontend system. So we think now that the new frontend system, it's at the point where it's a much nicer experience to get started to start with. So the new frontend system is the default if you're creating a new Backstage app. We did a whole bunch of kind of API. We did our usual API review, a lot of updates to clean up the API surface. Also added support for some missing things like built-in support for permissions and feature flags in extensions, and a whole bunch of other things. So check out the release notes for more details. And you can jump to the next one. Also a bunch of updates for Backstage UI, new components. A table is a lot nicer and easier to use. There's a couple of breaking changes as well. So check the changelog on ui.backstage.io once that one is updated for more detailed list. And we also started out rolling out changes to or more adoption of Backstage UI. So, for example, we have switched out a lot of the entity cards to be based on Backstage UI by default. This removes some of the props, so there are some breaking changes in there, but it generally there's some unnecessary props that you no longer need to supply. So yeah, you can see it's a slightly cleaner, flatter look now on the entity page cards. And Freben, should I keep going or do you want to chime in?
You can cover this one.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so I'm excited about this one, actually. The CLI modularization. We've been working towards this for a really long time, trying to refactor the CLI to be have more separate implementation of all of the commands. And we finally shipped a modularization of the CLI. So it's broken up into, I don't know the count, but it's probably 8 or 9 different modules now for like linting, building, the info command, and so on. And you can install them separately. You can build your own modules. We are going to refactor more of the other APIs to be CLIs to be modules as well. But of course, the Backstage CLI, you can also just install all of the existing commands as a preset, and it keeps working as is for now as well. An exciting addition there, an exciting new module is the auth module. So as long as you enable some experimental new auth flows in the auth backend and install the necessary front-end components, you can now authenticate using the CLI to your Backstage instance. And there's APIs for accessing this these authentication sessions as well. So there's a new set of actions commands that lets you execute actions in your Backstage instance using this authentication session. So it's a bit more of an end user use case. I'll throw in as well that these modules, they can be executed in isolation. So you don't have to install the whole CLI. You can just run one of module as well using MPX or some alternative. So that's a nice quality of life thing. Okay, Preben, over to you.
Yeah. So one new addition to the catalog's capabilities is a more structured, complete filtering of entities. We call them filter predicates, and you can now have logical expressions using and or basically, and operators like exists and in and has prefix and so on to filter things. You can use this both for entities and for registered locations, and hopefully this will be very useful for people. It also has the benefit of being done through post instead of get on the HTTP level. So this also opens up for bigger queries without hitting API, HTTP limits or header sizes and so on. We've also done a little bit of a cleanup, moving two processors over to the community plugins repo, and that's the one that annotates SCM slugs. It adds a special annotation based on where your thing is located in your source code, source control system. And the code owners module, which is a bit of an oddball and was living better over in the community repo. And next slide. Finally, I think Patrick is excited about this as well, but I'm going to steal it anyway. The translation ref system is now promoted to stable. It has been a bit of a journey, but we feel that now we're at a good point to ship this. There's import and export support, and the API is stable, and feel free to start using it more in your own packages or contribute more translations to the main repo. I think that's it for release highlights.
Nice. That's great. Any question regarding release, change log? Drop a message in the chat. Preben, in the meantime, since we are talking about this catalog and new predicates, regarding the new post endpoint, is it already used by the client side, or how do I use it if I want to use the post endpoints instead of the get one?
The client side, it tries to be smart. So if you use the new capabilities from the client and query using this format, it switches to use the right endpoint that supports this. So if you use the catalog client in your front end, it will do the right thing as you start using the new interface. We considered making it so that if you give it queries that are too complex using the old stuff, that it also switched to this, but I haven't done that yet. That's something we could explore perhaps. But hopefully most usages will switch over to the new filtering syntax, and we'll all go from there.
Nice. So long term, do we want to move to the post to using the post one, or?
I think so, yes.
By default, okay.
Yeah, and the old get one would probably be delegated more to be a convenient shorthand for curl and so on.
Cool. And let's see if I see a question. No question so far. There was also this. Okay. All right. Nice. If anyone has more questions, feel free to drop a message in the chat, and then we can cover them at the end. Cool. Then thank you, Preben and Patrick. Really appreciate your help here. And I guess we can move to the next topic in the agenda, which is building a solid developer experience from Ericsson. So at BackstageCon Atlanta last year, Kieran and Damien presented a talk on how Ericsson scaled the developer experience with Backstage. And I guess since then, a few things have evolved. And yeah, we are curious to hear more.
Perfect,
Over
Vincenzo.
to you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Feel free to take the screen.
Yes, I'll try here now. Just send a request, I guess.
Cool. Let me make you co-host, so you shouldn't have problems. Can you share now?
Yeah.
Let me.
Okay.
Good.
All good? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Kick it off.
Yep. So we're here today to talk to you about how Ericsson scale developer experience with Backstage. The journey continues. So it is about building developer experience, and we did go through this at BackstageCon over in Atlanta. So we're now moving on to the next stage and where we went from there. My name is Kieran Egan. I'm an engineering manager leading developer experience for network management by driving solutions for and adoption by our developers.
My name is Damien O'Toole. I'm a principal engineer here working at Ericsson, and I'm the developer advocate for our network management engineering unit.
So when we were over at BackstageCon last November, we talked about building a solid developer experience with 6 key pillars shining through for everything that we were, for everything that we did. And those were leadership backing, a mindset shift, addressing feedback, engineering first as an approach, continuous contact, and what can we stop? So I'm not going to go into too much detail on these, but leadership backing is about the leaders in your organization backing what you do. And it's not about being there at the very beginning to say, yes, you can start this and go on. They're there all the way. So every week we meet with the leadership team and we present what we're working on, and we also get approvals to keep moving forward. And it helps us keep the pace with our developers. The second one is mindset shift. That's about getting people to think about using the portal first to get their information out there, but also not just about the information, but contributing plugins, for example, as well to what we have built. Then when we talk about addressing feedback, our customers are our developers. So through our portal, we can gather feedback. Through a developer advocate network, we gather feedback, and also through surveys, we gather feedback. But when we get that feedback, we have to sit down and take this engineering first approach to solve the root cause of the problems that our developers bring to us. So it's not about just putting up a new web page or a conference page or a SharePoint with some information. It's about providing a connected and cohesive approach to delivering value to our developers. And when we're doing that, we actually maintain the contact with the developers that gave us the feedback so that we can make sure that we refine the solution we provide so that everybody gets the best or the most impact from what we deliver. And when we do deliver it, we have to stop whatever was the old way of doing it. Otherwise, you never get adoption. So this is quite an important point, even though it is the last circle in our 6 key pillars. So with that said, I'm going to hand you over to Damien, and he's going to show you a slide that brings us back to KubeCon and where we were when we were over there, which sets the stage for where we went since.
Okay, so yeah, just like you said, Kieran, we won't dwell too much on the KubeCon side of things, but it's probably a good starting point just to kind of explain what we've been doing since as well. So we talked about it in the KubeCon kind of presentation, a little bit about joining the dots, or BackstageCon, should I say, in terms of joining the dots. And at the time, we were very focused on trying to make sure that we're bringing the developer workflow into the IDP, into our portal, to try and make sure we could kind of allow and support the developers, giving them different value points. So for example, you can see in the little diagram, the concept of this is where I go to find my component and see information about that. And I can start to do connected kind of use cases. For example, where are the code reviews? Let's see the status of those. Maybe I'm updating my back-end system in terms of status tracking. So for example, Jira, we go back and we update Jira and give some updates on how we're getting on with the code review. We start to feed it into our pipelines. We can see our pipeline status as we through the portal, of course. And maybe then you revisit Jira, kind of trying to follow that development workflow, give the value of these different use cases to the developer, bringing it into the kind of one-stop shop, the kind of thing we talked about, that IDP first mentality, having that as being the place where we'll deliver the value to the developers. But what we'd started to notice, I guess, was had we really improved the developer experience by doing what we had done? We had to kind of stop and kind of pay attention to the pillars that Kieran talked about in the previous slide and make sure that we are actually making the difference we wanted to do. And that's through that continuous contact, basically talking to the developers, making sure that it is hitting the key things that they wanted. And what we were starting to see was that perhaps we hadn't quite improved the experience as much as we had hoped to do. What we'd seen was, although we delivered a lot of this value, it was a little bit fragmented. And maybe although we have a single pane of glass, it's not exactly simple for the developer to find, use case A or B or C. So maybe on the next slide, to kind of give a better visualization of that. So what we were kind of seeing was people were coming to the portal, this is the one-stop shop. So I'll turn up and I'll see where I find the value that I want. But for example, they were starting to see some difficulty in doing some use cases. So for example, is my microservice that I want to develop at the right base OS level? Have we got the right kind of version of our software to build on? Is there any vulnerabilities in my software? Is there something I need to address? Is my code at the right quality levels based on our standards and on what we expect to be able to deem the software worthy to ship? Even the catalog status from the IDP point of view, we have this concept of trying to make sure that the catalog is, fresh. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a coming slide. But is that even at the right level? And then is my design rules, am I following the design rules? Am I able to adhere to them? Can I see that? And finally, is the security posture in the right position? Can we actually ship this product or application to our actual external customers? So these were all kind of the value use cases we were trying to bring into the portal. We were doing this through different and varying plugins. But I think what we were finding was, although we were really focused on trying to improve developer experience, we needed to stop and figure out, had we done that and had we actually delivered that? So maybe, Kieran, you might talk a little bit then, I guess, about how we started to unify the dots, let's call it.
Yes, thanks, Damien. So in the last couple of slides, like we showed a workflow for our developers, how they navigated through their component to see had they got into the baseline, for example. So a different use case would be our software insights, which is how we view the security in our software as well. And even though we had provided this connected and cohesive information, it was fragmented across the portal itself. And people were having to click, click, click to get to where they wanted to be. And if we look at the bottom right-hand side, that picture is how our portal used to look. And the purple boxes that you see there are 4 of the 6 dots that Damien showed in the previous slide that our developers do want to see on a day-to-day basis. And on the far right-hand side of the portal screenshot, that's actually not a tab. That's a button to navigate to the right to see even more tabs. So this becomes a little bit cluttered for our developers to find what they really want. And that's where we started to talk to our UX experts and ask them, can you help us solve this problem that our developers are facing? So they went back to UX first principles, did a card sort activity, came up with a view of how this should look, which will be very intuitive and easy to get the information that our developers really need to see. And then they actually put together a video so that the developers could see what this is going to look like when it's finished. So we used Figma to represent this, show how we expected them to use it, and then we were able to get feedback along the way so that we could tweak it for when we actually deliver the end result. So if we move to the next slide, we start to look at how we evolve and unify into a single entity. So our UX techniques helped us identify the relevant information that the developers wanted using a card sorting technique. So we got the top 10 examples of the information in each dot that people wanted to see. And then this UX approach organically consolidated the information into a single unified view that we call software insights. All the relevant information relating to a core area is under one tab now, instead of lots of tabs like you would have seen in the previous representation. And with that, our developers, excuse me, their search is now simplified into a streamlined single path to a view of connected and cohesive information. So they just go to one place and everything is there at a glance that they need to see. We don't tell them about all the good things. We tell them about the things that they need to pay attention to in this view. So maybe if I hand you over to Damien now, he'll be able to show you where we've got to with this and how it's evolving.
So let's see if these graphics play all for us. Okay, very good. So apologies about having to sanitize some of the data just on the screenshots. Hopefully it doesn't take away from the overall aesthetics of the portal today, because I think it's come a long way actually, even from the screenshot you referred to, Kieran, on the previous slide. It's amazing, a couple of months I can see even the different little kind of small but really useful and important developer tools we've added, like, you know, the kind of little clickable entities along the top here to allow developers to do actions like cloning repos or whatever, raising different tickets or whatever they may want. You can see we have the kind of the roles and the different kind of additional information, product information started to come in as well since. So lots of little things we've done, but they all kind of add up. But the key one we want to touch on today, I guess, is this Insights plugin, as you referred to. So right along the top already, you can see we've got a nice cleanup, and we don't have as many tabs or plugins that are available to the developers where we previously were asking them to be able to click on A and a B and a Y or whatever it might be along the top. Now it's kind of more consolidated into that view. And we're using very simple but sharp visualizations to try and attract whether the developer had a quick visual overview. If there's something they need to look into deeper, green looks good, yellow not so good, and red we need to probably pay attention to and try and figure out what it is we got to do. Just on the top as well, we have plans to kind of do further consolidations for some of the other plugins, but we might come back in a future session maybe to talk about what we did over there, I guess. The idea then on the Insights, I guess, is from the Overview tab, you get a quick look and feel, and if that's good enough, that's good enough. But if you wanted to go a little deeper, you can click on the More Details, and then that allows you to then kind of bring up the actual Software Insights card itself, the actual information along it. Again, from a visualization point of view, very quick and easy for the developer to pick up the pieces of, is there anything in a particular area I've got a bit of problem with? So for example, code coverage looks good. The design rules are compliant, we're successful with those, but then we do have a little bit of a hotspot on our base OS. It's a version behind. So we can quickly go down here and kind of see from the different release dates what was the most recent version in use, for example. We look like we're one version behind. We also have an automation actually in place for developers in this particular one to reduce the cognitive load. It will pick it up. We literally just took the screenshot an hour ago, so more than likely this will already be gone green by the time we go back. But anyway, just for the sake of the presentation, we had to take a screenshot at some stage. We can see our catalog status. We've kind of gone with this bronze, silver, kind of gold approach as a way of trying to encourage the developers to kind of have, you know, different bars of achievement for it. In this case, you can see, for example, we've slipped back to silver. I think in the original screenshot, it might have been gold. But the developer can click on this and they'll see exactly which criteria it is that's missing. And we find that's really important. One of the biggest things we heard on our adoption story of developer experience, and particularly since we've had Backstage and the portal instantiated, was reliable information. Developers are really keen on, if I'm going to find it, it has to be fresh, it has to be accurate, it has to be to the right level so I can use it. So we find that this is a really important way to do it, and we're using things like the Backstage notifications underlying system as a way of notifying developers, oh, by the way, your catalog status has just slipped back a little bit. We can send emails to our developers to try and make sure that they're aware of it, to try and notify them so that we can kind of keep the, you know, that kind of good community of, you know, good fences make for good neighbors, as they say, a way of trying to make sure that everybody, if they can keep the level of their entities high, it's very beneficial for them as a development team, but it's also very beneficial for the wider ecosystem, all the development teams that may be. Ability scan page over here, you can see, for example, again, a very quick visual of, we got a critical we need to look at or some highs. We know how important CVEs are in this day and age. So we have a very clear kind of picture of what's coming through from the feedback we're getting in our pipelines, and it allows the developers then to be able to react to that. Again, we're not hiding the external details. If they need to go further out, we have the ability to jump out to NVT details, and a little slide out kind of jumps out there to give them that extensive details. So very kind of we haven't kind of dismissed the values that the developers were looking for previously, but it allows us to kind of bring it all into kind of a one simple view. This is where they go to see it, and then they can go and jump around and get a little bit deeper onto it if they need be. So I guess, Kieran, maybe you might talk a little bit more, I guess, just in terms of what we're doing then with the, I guess, AIs all around us.
Yeah.
We see it everywhere we go. So I guess maybe what are we doing with AI in terms of our developer experience initiative?
Yes, so literally AI is involved in everything that we're doing, and it's being promoted not just in Ericsson, it's across the whole technology industry to help us increase our output, I guess, across the board. So where we're going next is we want to change the direction. And as we go through this slide, you'll see that we're migrating from a search-based to a prompt-based developer experience. So in the earlier slides, you can see the dots there. We had all of these feeding into the software insights as our single piece of information that our developer can get with one click. And Then our developer looks at this on a day-to-day basis, probably many times per day, to pick up information about each one of these. Not necessarily all of them at the same time, but at different times during the day. They want to see the posture of their security, for example. And they are doing that because things change all the time in our industry, and we have to try and bring fixes in. If there's a new CVE fix available, we want to bring that in as quickly as possible so that we can get it into our baseline, for example. But that means that our developer has to go to the portal many times to see, has this updated? So we want to change this around a little bit, and that's why we have changed the direction as the heading of the slide. So if we bring in our AI, we can examine all of this information in our structured information that's contained within Software Insights and give, real information that is valuable to our developer when they need it. So it's when the change occurs, rather than having a pull-based approach that we have, an event-driven approach that we push out a notification, but the AI will actually consolidate all the information. There may be ties between 2 or 3 of these dots that actually pull together to say, well, you have a new CVE, you need to address that, but you also need to update your Common Base OS as well at the same time. And that means that AI is actually giving some guidance to our developers on what they need to do when they need to do it, rather than checking consistently over the course of the day if something has come in. And that means that if we're saving, a few minutes here and there throughout the course of a day, that adds up over the course of a week, and over the course of a year, it adds up to be a number of hours. And then if you multiply that across thousands of developers across big companies, you can have real savings. But it's not the savings, it's the output that you get at the back of it that you really want to have. So that's kind of the direction that we're going with that. That's what we're hoping to come back at a later stage and talk about when we have it completed. But it's because Backstage gives us that single source of truth that we can leverage that and use our AI to put together really connected information and give it to our developer when they need to hear about it.
Maybe one more small, quick addition on this one as well is, I guess, from the portal point of view as well, kind of connected to your point here about trying to get it to the developers easier as well. We want to have MCP capability with the portal. We're using Backstage Actions for that, actually. So we're starting to expose that as an MCP. So developers are in their IDE or using QRSLI or whatever it might be, and they're able to get in, ask questions, prompts back that we're able to hit the tools that we're exposing from the portal side of the house.
Exactly.
So kind of, again, one less context for the developer having to flick back to the portal and do the questions. They can do it direct from the ID. So it's another kind of thing we're doing with change the direction, I guess, with the portal to try and allow it to be connected to. I guess then, Kieran, maybe this one then, just to talk a little bit about where we were in KubeCon and then kind of what we've seen with the new work we've been doing.
Yeah, like when we were over in KubeCon, like we showed this slide, we've updated it a little bit since because we've new figures, but we started off with very humble beginnings back in 2023, and we started taking stats and projecting from those back in January 2024. You can see we started off with 189 visits to our portal, which was probably mainly from our own IDP team back then. But since then, as we kept adding new content and functionality to the portal, our visits have been increasing consistently. And since last November, well, October is on the slide, we were at 4,073 visits recurring each week. We've gone to over 4,600 visits. So we've had an increase of just over 550 visits per week since we were in KubeCon or BackstageCon. And that's because of bringing in the likes of Software Insights. And that was actually brought in 2 phases. But there's lots of other things that Damien touched on as well, that we've just added in little pieces of extra information in our cards and in our catalog that make the portal a much better place for our developers to work in.
A lot of that's from feedback from the community as well. That's the developer. We have a feedback plugin that allows developers to kind of give feedback directly to us through the portal as well. And a lot of the little things we've done, actually, we've picked up from, actually them just highlighting, because typically if it's a problem for one developer, it's going to be a problem for, all of them really in terms of the rollouts we do and so on and so forth. The other small thing I'd say on this slide, I know we've done it as numbers and tracking it as visits, but to me, what I see there is plateaus of value as we've kind of added new and bigger value-driven plugins based on the feedback or whatever we might do from our developers in the surveys or through the advocate sessions or whatever it might be as well. So it's a huge I think that's the key thing. I think if you kind of stay close to the value, if you stay close to your developers, listen to what they're doing, I think that's been a huge thing for us in our journey with Backstage and in our developer experience initiative from the whole perspective, to be honest.
Yeah. And I guess the last part there is our focus areas going forward now is to power DX with AI to bring that added value, and we've talked about that. I would also say that one metric that we're starting to see jump up now is the actions per visit. So because we've added more and more content into the portal, people are looking at lots of other things as they come on. So we are seeing adoption being driven by the amount of content that we get in there.
Yeah.
And
I think that's it. Yeah. So then just one very last slide is just really just a couple of links just to help anyone in case they, if they have, they probably had enough of us from today, but in case there's anyone that wants to see a little bit more from the Backstage, we have the link to the slides we actually presented. We have a link to the actual full talk where we go into the full kind of journey over the couple of years that we've been working our developer experience initiative. And just one small thing, I guess a lot of what we talked about today is developer experience for our internal developers working inside of Ericsson. We have started to reflect a little bit about developer experience and what we could do with that for our external customers. So we actually sat down a couple of fellow colleagues and myself, we wrote a white paper for it. And there's a link there in case anyone just wants to have a little look at what we're doing in terms of external customer developer experience and so on and so forth. Our contact details are there, of course, but if anyone wants to reach out to us afterwards, no problem at all. We'd be only too happy to try and answer any questions you might have. Thanks very much, everyone.
thank you.
Nice. This is great. Feel free to share any question if you have anything. The insights idea is really, really great. The way you basically gather all the information in a single place. I was wondering, like, this seems to be tailored for software engineers. And have you started to get any requests to show insights for other personas too?
Yeah, we did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, lots of
Good to go.
personas. Yeah. No, we definitely have. Even as Kieran touched at the very start, the concept of what are you stopping? Our leadership were very, very good with us, to be honest. They gave us an initial, obviously, backing to give it a go and let's see what we could do. But they've been with us every step of the journey. And one of the key questions they've asked along the way is, what are we stopping as well? If we're introducing new value and if we have the conviction of our beliefs that that's a better value, we can do this in a better way, whatever it might be, then the what are we stopping is something that we get asked a lot. And it was a good question that kind of kept us very honest about how we go about it. So as we've started to stop some of those tools on our journey and we started to set sunset on different things that were kind of separate websites or separate silos of information and so on, we've definitely started to see surprising persona usage of that content. Kind of caught us out a little bit almost, that we didn't even realize it was so heavily used, a particular tool, and used by, let's say, a tier of project managers or a tier of people managers or whatever it might be. So we're definitely starting to see those requests start to come in, or maybe somebody in the organization who wears a certain hat, as in maybe they're the chief configuration manager, people, things like this. So we get lots of requests like that, Vincenzo, that we're kind of having to balance the books with of, trying to make sure that we are helping on those use cases, but also trying to stay on the developer pain points as well.
Yeah, there may be specific views that people want to get. And while we have all the information in the portal, it's just like the presentation we had.
Yeah.
They might want those different views consolidated into a single view that is the most valuable for them. And there may be a reason for that. So we have to listen to those voices as well and try and bring them together. And we've done that actually recently for project managers in a different product. So it's a good question, Vincenzo.
You're on the money, Vincenzo. We definitely had it.
Nice. All right. I don't see any other question, but if you have anything, you have your their contact details, so feel free to reach out to Kieran and Damien. And yeah, thank you so much. This was great. So hope to see you around soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. All right, moving on. Let me share this one quickly my screen. I have only this slide. So we now have Miklós. I guess you are in the call. I saw you.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Nice. So Yes, this is last final item for today. So let's hear about the Scaffolder Studio, this new open source tool that you have built. Over to you. You should be able to share your screen.
Yeah. As you mentioned, hey everyone, I'm Miklós Kiss. I've worked with Backstage for quite some time. I work at Rodi, but this is my own open source plugin for Backstage, and what I wanted to do for quite some time. And if I just share properly, it's really last minute, as Vincenzo said.
No problem.
As well.
We like last minute stuff. We are always last minute. So
I might
need
to rejoin. I'm not sure if I can share in Zoom. Yeah, I think I will be back in a sec.
No problem. We can wait. There is a small question anyway. Will the Ericsson slides be available somewhere? I would love to check the links in the further reading slides.
Yeah, no problem. We'll figure it out where to put them, Vincenzo, but that's no problem. We can do that.
Nice. Okay. If you can share them, just a quick place will be like the agenda for today, or the issue. That's a quick place where everyone has access. So yeah, nice.
Okay, I'm back. Let me see if it works now. Google Chrome. So I think it does. Okay, yes. So this is, I call it Scaffolder Studio, and it's basically a Backstage plugin that you can use and install into your Backstage instance. And the aim was to help basically develop scaffolder templates. Like scaffolder templates are YAML files. We have something like we have these environments, like these template editors and some stuff where you can test and build your scaffolder templates, but you still need to write the YAML. So I think when I first started to interact with scaffolders around 4 years ago, I had this idea that finally I was able to, I would say, make it into an okay shape. So if I just show you really quick, it's quite live. I didn't really prepare, as I said before. So the idea is that the scaffolder template can be represented as some other visual way. So I went with a really basic node-based editor. So what you can do is basically create your scaffolder template and all the big blocks represented as nodes. All of these nodes are a different section, Backstage community. The session. Let me get an owner template. We have these steps, the properties or parameters. Every parameter has the properties and the output. These are basically the big building blocks of a scaffolder template. What we gain by this, if you use this, is like we can have an access to every installed action immediately. So you should be able to really easily pick what you want. The schema is rendered, so you get an access to immediately put it in where you want to put it. And there is some extra stuff that I will show in a sec. So this is a really basic template that will just log something. Let me call it name. And if I want to call it, let's just say hello. And then you can see what you have access and what relationships you have in your template and between the nodes that you configure, some stuff that you can immediately. You can go and check the YAML, like basically this all the nodes are getting serialized into the YAML, and you can do whatever you want with this YAML. So you can ingest it into your instance. There is a built-in dry run, like it uses the same stuff as what the dry run APIs we have in Backstage. It just coupled into this new, I would say, this developer environment for you. And I think, yeah, this is the really basic what it can do. There is some other stuff that I think if I just really quickly, maybe some other stuff you could do. Property 1, like there is a possibility that you can connect nodes. Yeah. So it immediately fills in the 9 charts with the correct parameter. And like, you know, that the dependency is immediately there. You don't need to write it. Yeah, I think basically this is it. Of course, there is the output section and everything else. And just another thing, like these, the plugin right now comes with all these like almost pre-installed application kind of like inside Backstage with your tabs and stuff. And these are tried to make that these are your templates. So these are based on your Backstage entity ref that you should be able to only see your own stuff here. So you can play with it. You can figure out what you want to do, try run, test them, and then later the way you want to ingest it, you can ingest. And just really quickly, I will show a really, I would say, alpha feature / experimental. I call these prefabs, and it's coming basically, I try to make reusable scaffolder steps, or almost like reusable scaffolder blobs that there are like a platform expert to understand what is how your infrastructure or everything else works. And the idea is that they can create, like, for example, a debug weight 5 or something like that. I think it should be good. So, and then everyone else, as soon as they make these prefabs available, now every developer, when they create something or they want to create a template, they should be able to use these. So, yep. And these prefabs are getting as well or serialized into the YAML file at the end. So these getting, because they are live, serialized, like they use like every update into these prefabs should become like into your environment, like in your templates reflected here. But yeah, these are like really basic right now, but I really want to nail down in the future like these reusable steps when you can rely on when you're a developer and you just come into the scaffolder and you basically don't need to put and everything from scratch, but you know like how to publish something, you know how to pull something, how to edit a Terraform file, and you should be able to just use those pre-built steps somehow. But yeah, I think that's it. A really quick introduction.
This is great. Nice. Have you started receiving contributions for your plugin?
Not really yet. I mean, Hepkey obviously helped.
Okay.
Like, I think he's the first one every time on every plugin.
Nice.
Thank you very much.
Nice. Question about the prefabs. So
Yeah.
these are I can pronounce prefab. Basically, and a step configured, a pre-configured step, or
Yeah, it can be a pre-configured step or a property or an output blob right now.
Okay, interesting. Nice. Any questions so far? Prefabs are such a great idea. Elaine from in the chat. So good feedback. Any question for Miklós? I guess soon we will see more people using this plugin. Probably the issues tab on your repository probably will start growing. Well, that's a good sign when this happens. All right, this is great. All right, I don't see any other questions. So thank you so much for this quick demo. I know it was last minute. I just saw last minute, but thank you so much for sharing this. This was really great from your side. So
thank you.
Talk to you soon on Discord or GitHub. Nice. Cool. All right, moving on to the last part, which is the final Q&A section. So if you have any question regarding latest release, previous topic, drop a message or just unmute yourself. We are here. I pause for a few seconds. maybe worth mentioning the slowdowns on PRs next week. Yeah, maybe that's true. We will mention that at the end. Cool. No questions so far. Okay, cool. Then I guess we can end the session. So thank you so much for attending. And the next community session will be scheduled for April 15th. Before we go, remember BackstageCon is scheduled for next week, March 23rd in Amsterdam. And that during KubeCon, you can find some of us at the Backstage booth at the Project Pavilion. So see you there, and thank you so much.